Bill Parisi, appreciate you coming on, having a conversation. I've been on a mission, right? My mission is, and I think we share a same mission. I want to bring out the best in as many athletes, and we're more so just athletes, just people I come across. I want to bring out the best in everybody that crosses my path on my journey, right? So that's my mission. And I think I've having a lot of great conversations with people based around certain topics. So when I thought about wanting to have you come on, have a conversation with you, one topic that I thought of that I think you could speak a lot to is more of like a quote. So I think I've heard you say it, I've heard a lot of people that I look up to say it. If you're the strongest and fastest in the room, you're in the wrong room. If you're the smartest person in the room, you're in the wrong room. So the point of this is being able to surround yourself with people that make you better and kind of force you to grow. So the reason I kind of think of you through your journey just as a javelin thrower, a track athlete, that's kind of the path that you took in order to improve yourself. So speak a little bit about that.
Yeah, well, I think first of all, it's not having an ego, right? I think so many people or if you want to reach the top, you got to keep your ego in check. Now, don't take that for not having confidence, right? There's a difference between confidence and ego. I'm a confident guy, but I don't have any ego. There's no ego. So I'm always, till this day, seeking advice from people that I feel are better than me in certain areas. You can't be the best in everything you do, right? You got to decide what you want to really be the best at, and even within that area. So I took up speed, right? As a young athlete, I was, okay, this is something I feel the market, there's a need in the area of speed development training. Being a 5'10" javelin thrower, I needed speed down the runway, needed explosiveness, and that's why I started my journey to learn about performance. But then it just took me to clinics and seminars around the world, learning from others, and I enjoy being a student. I really enjoy. I spend a lot of time being the teacher, but I'll always be a student.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think you brought up the perfect word, ego. And I think nowadays, especially with young athletes, and Matt Simpson and I had a great conversation about social media and how it's great for certain things, but could also be a poison for certain things. So it kind of feeds that ego. So it's almost as if they only want people to see their greatness. They don't want people to see their hunger to seek the other's greatness and absorb that. Yep.
No, there's no doubt. And I think, how do people, when you really think about how does someone develop, their expertise, right? It's never alone. They're reading books, they're watching videos, they're learning. The only difference is I'm not afraid to give credit to the people I've learned from and expose them and talk about them. And, so whether it be with someone like Ken Clark, who's a biomechanist, and a specialty with speed training. He's a PhD, and his research has been around speed development training, specifically research around treadmill work and acceleration work. And so, hey, Ken's become a close friend of mine. We work closely together on analyzing different things, and I'm happy to share. I learned from a guy like Ken Clark, or other guys, whether it be a Dan Path or a Franz Bosch, or just different guys from around the world that I look up to in terms of their long history of training world-class athletes. And I say, okay, what can I take from them, from what they've done, and how can I apply that to the youth, the high school athlete, the college, field or court sport athlete? Because these guys are more track and field based guys, and that's really my origin, is track and field, right? I've learned a lot being a Division I All-American track and field athlete, traveled the world, competed in Europe. I've taken a lot of that information and say, okay, how do I apply this to field and court sports? And I continue to do that, and a lot of our information does come from track and field. If you look at training for speed, training for performance, it's originated from track and field because track and field's been around for hundreds, thousands of years.
Yeah. I think I don't want to get too off topic, but when I had my conversation with George Alexandris, who's big in track and field, right? One of the comments I made to him, and he's obviously biased, but I'd like to get your perspective on it too. I believe all athletes of all different sports should have a base in track and field. What's your thoughts on that?
Well, I mean, there's no doubt. Now, that doesn't mean they have to compete in track, right? But the fundamentals of track, just linear movement, I look at that as a base, right? understanding linear movement, acceleration, maximum speed running, because we know those are variants. They are parts of your ability to have great multi-directional speed. So yeah, you cannot have great multi-directional speed if you don't have strong acceleration or have somewhat of a decent top end, because we're talking about neurofiring, we're talking about the ability to be elastic and responsive. These all they're interrelated.
Absolutely.
So there's a base there in linear speed. There's a base in throwing, right? Just the basic of throwing a med ball, just the athleticism of throwing. So when you talk about performance in any sport, it's really about a transfer of force. And ultimately, you know, we're transferring force into a ball, whether it be a football or a baseball or a golf ball, where we put it through, you know, an external limb, you know, distal limb, into an object, or we're transferring force into the ground, right, through our legs, through our feet. And whether it be hitting a baseball, for example, we're transferring force from one leg to the other. So if I'm a right-handed batter, I have more weight on my right leg, and I have to learn how to transfer force from my right to my left. But at that time, when I transfer force from the right to, how do I transfer that force through my body into hand speed, which is bat speed? You know, so the essence of sport is the ability to transfer force quickly, right? Whether it be into a bat or into the ground. If I want to run real fast or change direction, I got to line up my body, my limbs, create great core stability, you know, proximal stiffness we call it, and create that into distal limb speed, my legs, my feet into the ground. So ultimately, we want to learn how to punch the ground like a boxer would punch the bag. And track and field throwing implements like med balls, sprinting, that foundation of track and field, without a doubt, is the foundation to athletic performance.
Yeah, I think you're hitting the nail on the head. And just to kind of bring it back home to the point is, everything you just said is great. And it's almost simple in effect. When you think about it, it's almost simple. But to get to the point where you're at now, you needed that surrounding. You needed the other people that you opened yourself up to get that knowledge.
Yeah, and that's the thing about what keeps me motivated and inspired, because yes, I'll learn from a lot of people, then I'll synthesize that information and come up with my own concepts or ways to express it, ways to deliver it to the other people. So really my mission in Parisi Speed School, it's taking all this information, which is a lot, right? There's so much stuff on the internet, there's a lot of research, there are, you know, many different high-level guys that only work with world-class guys. What I do is, and what I'm excited about, I do my best to take all this information and then come up with a strategy, approach, a system, a program to deliver it at the Parisi Speed School. So now all these high school kids can get it, all these middle school kids, our college kids, right? You know, that's what we do. That's what I do every day. That's what I do. That's my job, right? And it's fun, and you know, it's exciting because, you know, you're always challenged. And to take this information and to you know, bring it down or boil it down into more usable bites where people can implement it into their training program and get results is critical, because not everything the world-class guys do is appropriate for a high school athlete, right? You got to know what that athlete needs. You got to know how it works. But again, it's being open-minded. I think the big difference that with me, I share where I learn. You know, I'm always expressing, hey, this guy, where maybe other people, they don't share that. You know, they want to be, you know, the guy. See, I'm not worried about being the guy. It just happens, right? So my message to you is that, you know, hey, Parisi Speed School has a pretty big brand, and it's always been my concept not to be worried about being the guy, but now all of a sudden, 30 years later, you know, there's hundreds of thousands of kids wearing the Parisi name on their chest. You know, not by design. To me, that it just worked out that way because I had this approach, you know, to give credit and where credit is due.
I think you used the perfect word, was usable, in terms of delivering this information and knowledge, because a lot of times getting the information and learning it could be the easy part. But learning how to make a high school kid understand and apply it, that's the difficult part. That's the art of coaching. I think that's where a lot of your successes come from, because you kind of figured it out, and you're still figuring it out on a daily basis.
Even today, when I'm training my kid, training my boys, and you know, some of the kids I train, even today, constantly, every workout, I'll give Dan Path this credit, every workout is a new experiment. You know, every time you train, you know, you're learning. How did we respond from that session? How are we feeling? You know, how long did it take us to recover? Did what we did, right now we're doing a lot of perturbation training, right? We're using a lot of unstable kind of objects to train. And, you know, that's very stimulating. And I'm seeing that it really taxes the nervous system. Recovery for that is longer than a typical strength training because it's so neural. Like we're just firing so many different muscles and the fascia, all these things are coming into play when we work with perturbation. So, you know, constantly in a learning phase.
Yeah, so I think take-home points here for athletes and coaches and really all people alike is be open to the world, be open to mentors, be open to learning from other people. It's not always about you. The journey is great, but when you share a journey with a group of people, the journey is even better.
So much more fun, and I will say I'm open, but you also have to have a strong filter.
Absolutely.
And what do I mean by filter? I talk to a lot of different people. Now, I'll be very selective who I'm going to do a deep dive with, right? So I'll learn, but then I might be talking to someone saying, okay, this guy's a nice guy, but maybe there's not much I can get from him. So, you know, not in a bad way, but I'm not going to be saying, you know, maybe giving someone credit where I didn't really learn a lot from, right? So I'll talk to a lot of people, and that means not only world-class people, but I'll talk to coaches in our network, new coaches. You know, there's things I learned from my son. He comes up with expressions on certain techniques, you know, kind of like, you know, we want to apply force when we sprint. It's kind of like he said something one day, it's like running on concrete barefoot. You know, you want to run as fast as you can. If you imagine if you're running on concrete barefoot and you want to run as fast as you can, well, you want to put force into the ground, but you also want to be light on your feet because you don't want to be pounding. That'll be hard, but you want to be fast. So that's a pretty good cue or analogy to be quiet when you run, because I'm a believer when you run, you don't want to pound and make a lot of noise. You know, you want to be somewhat quiet, but you want to generate a lot of force, and you want to generate force quickly. Absolutely. So it's a fine line of that force application, you know, or as Dan talks about, the expression of force when we sprint, the expression of force. People express force differently when they sprint. There are quieter runners, there are more loud runners, there are quad runners, there are more, you know, glute activation runners, things. Then we have to find that fine line and make sure we're maximizing. So I learn from everyone.
Yeah, you never know who you could learn from too. Like you just said, learning a cue from your son.
Yeah, I mean, it comes from everywhere.
As a father, that's got to be a great moment.
No, it's great. I mean, and it's not just him. It's just people I train, coaches, athletes. You know, you always can learn from someone. You know, my dad said, you know, very wise man. He said to me, you know, you can always learn something from someone, no matter who they are.
Absolutely.
You know, they always have experiences, you know, and that's how we learn, from experiences. Many people have experiences. You have a certain amount of experiences. Someone else has a certain amount of experiences. Well, your experiences are different than mine. So I can learn from your experience. That's how we learn, experiences.
Absolutely.
There's expensive, you know, experiences and inexpensive, you know. Expensive experiences when you spend years and years to learn something yourself. That's very expensive. Or I have a conversation with you, I learned something in 10 seconds. That's inexpensive experience. So it's good to have inexpensive experiences.
Absolutely. I don't think I really prepped you for this moment, but I think you'll knock it out of the park. Everybody does the big things. Everybody goes to practice. Everybody goes to games. But what separates the average from the great is always
the little things.
The little things. We got it. I appreciate the talk, Bill. Thank you.
Awesome.